What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Invest Iowa. Today, I have David Faris with me, and we're going to talk about real estate investing. Very single family oriented conversation today. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Talk to me about yourself. How do you describe who David Faris is?
Well, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a real estate investor.
Wow, that was deep. That was a deep answer.
There you go.
You know, to some people it's really important, the faith. To some people it's really important, like ethics. So that's usually why I ask. Just like a deeper meaning just behind being real estate. Like, why are you actually in real estate? What drove you through real estate? What type of values do you like to have in your life?
Well, first of all, I am a man of faith for sure, and that is important to me. I got in, started with real estate mainly just because we wanted to do some long-term investing. I had a W-2 job for a long time and just knew that we wanted something that that was going to, stand the test of time, whether we kept our job or not.
What were you doing at the time?
I spent a lot of time as a business analyst working for some different companies. And I really enjoyed that. Did that for about 20 years.
20 years. And how old were you when you started to have conversations about real estate?
I was in my mid to late 20s.
Okay.
Probably 26 or 28, somewhere in that time frame is when we started buying. And I say we, that's my wife and I.
Okay. So your wife and I have been into the real estate world since you guys both started. Well, was there any specific reason behind it? Was there a purpose? Freedom, or just more money, or just like not having to have a job?
I think it was a combination of long-term investments and doing something more exciting. So I've always been pretty entrepreneurial, and while I, enjoyed the job I had, it really wasn't very entrepreneurial. And so this was an opportunity to build my own company, build my own business.
Okay. And then you started with single family. How did you start? Did you just started buying and holding? Did you start as a flipper? What was the strategy?
Yeah, we just started buying and holding. We bought move-in ready houses and, bought them and got a tenant in there right away.
Do you think that is the same way that you would have done it now?
No.
No? Why?
No, because there wasn't enough cash flow in it. My mentality at the time was, as long as the payment would cover the mortgage plus maybe a little extra, that was enough, and it wasn't enough. And so the good thing was that they're easy to buy, and we put tenants in before the first mortgage payment was made. So that was good. It proved the concept that we could be a landlord, that finding tenants wasn't difficult. So that was all good, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of cash flow at the time. So we changed our strategy within maybe the second year.
Within the second year, that was fairly quick. But then the property, acquiring those properties, how were you going about that? Were you going on the MLS? Were you reaching out to wholesalers? What was your reasoning behind acquiring properties?
We did a little on the MLS. We did some for sale by owner. I ran into a guy that was flipping properties. So after we had bought a few, then I met him, and he was flipping quite a few, or at least he had bought quite a few to flip. I think he had bought more than he could handle. And so we started looking at the properties that he hadn't done work to. And then we started making agreements with him that we would buy it for a certain price, and then we would agree on the amount of work that he was going to do. And the advantage to that was that it allowed me to start understanding how to rehab houses. You know, how, you know, what things cost, what we could and couldn't do. And then I would kind of follow along as he was doing that process. He was working on the house, I would be checking in every week or two, and we'd talk a lot. And that's really how I learned to rehab properties.
So technically you weren't hands-on, but you were learning just by seeing what they have to check.
Yep. Yeah, it worked out well for him because he had a buyer lined up before he even started the work. So he didn't have to put it on the market and wait around for a few months for it to sell. So it was good for him. It was good for us because I felt like we got a decent price on them, and I learned a lot. And so we bought, I want to say 4 or 5 houses from him. Maybe it was 6, something like that. And then after that, we started buying our own fixer-uppers.
Okay, what was that transition like?
It wasn't a difficult transition. I was more concerned with just finding the right contractor because he already had his properties, so I wasn't hiring him. So I was working, you know, trying to find some other people. So I did find somebody. It might have been through him, actually. I'm not for sure. But that contractor, actually, I've been working with him ever since.
Okay, and then those properties that you were holding on to, they were cash flowing?
They were, but not a lot.
Not a lot?
Yeah.
What do you think you were getting wrong about cash flowing?
So it just wasn't enough. So my initial thought was, well, if we could cash flow at least $100 a month. Now this was in 2004, 2005, right? Pretty quickly realized that if any repairs happen, I mean, if you have to replace the furnace, that just takes almost 2 or 3 years worth of your cash flow if you're only getting $100 a month. Or if you have any vacancies or, you know, things like that. So what we found was that even though the properties were bringing in positive cash flow, what seemed like positive cash flow each month, that it went right out the door pretty quick. So we pretty quickly realized that we needed to do more. So we went to 200. That wasn't enough. 300, that was better. So at this point, I just always kind of plan on 400 really is my target. In recent years, with the rates being so high, I've been able to lower that a little bit down to 300 with the anticipation that hopefully we can refinance and get back to that 400 or more cash flow per month per house.
Okay, what were you thinking in terms of, you know, LLC setting up, a right holding company? What was that conversation like? Did you ever struggle saying like, okay, we're gonna start buying properties, but do we need to talk to a CPA? How did you structure your company?
Yeah, we did have some questions about that. I'm trying to remember where we got answers. It was we did attend one training class. It was in Springfield, Missouri. My wife and I went down there for a weekend. You know, that was back before there was anything on the internet. All we had done was read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
You know. There was a few books, and that's about it. And so there was this group of investors out of Springfield that was putting on a training, and actually it was really good. You know, they talked all about how to buy properties, how to find properties, how to rehab properties, how to be a landlord, all the different things, and they had a lot of different documentation and things that we got. So that was good for giving us a comfort level. That was before we bought anything. And so
that was before you bought anything?
Yeah, we were, you know, it took us about 6 months to decide we're going to do it, to start looking, to start figuring out how do we do this? How do we, you know, what banks do we work with? Things like that. That's when we went to the training course as well.
Was that like a mastermind?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay.
So we went to that. We came back. We did finally find, put offers in on a couple different properties. We got acceptance on 2 of them. So we ended up buying our first 2 properties we bought in 2004.
Oh, wow. 2004.
Mm-hmm.
4 years after. How did you even prepare? Well, you didn't know about the crash, but you've gone through the crash. What do you think you've learned that people that haven't gone through crashes don't know?
Well, cash flow is important for sure. The nice thing about buy and hold real estate rentals is that people still need a place to live. So the crash really didn't impact us, honestly. I mean, it impacted us more in our W-2 jobs, because then you have a lot more concern of, are we going to keep our job or not? And I remember my wife's company did a 10% pay reduction across the board for everybody. But for our rental real estate, all our tenants still needed a place to live. They still paid their rent. The property values went down, but we didn't sell, and they've gone way up, and we still hold them. So, so from the real estate side, we really didn't have a negative impact on the real estate that we owned. It did provide us a good opportunity to buy.
Okay. So if somebody was to, be on your shoes right now, in terms of the cash flow properties, and especially with interest rates in the way that you are, what would you, what would be one piece of advice?
As far as today goes?
Yeah, as far as how crazy today with interest rates and everything that's going on.
Oh, that's a good question. I think real estate's always good to buy and hold, honestly. I mean, even the properties, we didn't buy a lot of properties when the prices went way up, but a lot of people did. Even the properties you buy, that were bought at that point are still worth a lot more now than they were then. And so, same thing with the rentals that we own. They continue to go up. So when you look at today, people say, well, the prices are really high, the rates are really high. My thought is, in 15 years from now, you're still going to be glad you bought that property. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you buy a property that's not cash flowing, okay, right? And when I say cash flow, I guess I'm typically saying, just if you take out your mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, that typical, PITI payment, they might say, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. If you take that out of the rent you're collecting, it needs to be positive, right? You need to be getting more money than that. Now, you still have expenses, you still have vacancies, you still have repairs, you still have, there's lots of things that can happen, which is why that cash flow is important. But to start with, you need to be positive. First of all, I wouldn't buy anything that you're, having to pay out of your pocket, right, just to own it. And then sometimes it depends on the asset. A lot of the things we're buying, because we're going to fix them up and rehab them. We've just put in new, furnace, new water heaters, new roofs, new windows. You might be, buying something that has a lot of new things in it. So the likelihood of those capital expenses occurring in the first, 5 years is slim.
Okay. That, because you're doing the bird strategy, right? Right. I guess you are going into a property and you're spending money, right? With these interest rates, bird is a strategy that's probably out of the window. That's just not a possibility.
It depends. I mean, it still can. If you find it for the right price, you can still make it work. But you do have to have enough room in there and factor in that interest rate and the payment.
Okay.
Into the overall.
Are you using private money lending when you're going into these properties to then refinance, or are you going with your own capital, let's say? Yeah.
We do a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Right. So we do have some private money that we use now, although I didn't when I was getting started. Or actually, I should say, for the first 15 years, I didn't.
Okay. What do you think about other people's money?
I think that's important to use, and that means a lot of things. I mean, bank money is other people's money.
Oh yeah, in a way, yeah. I was probably just referring to private money lending, but yes, you're right. Yeah,
if you have private money lending, if you have somebody, maybe it's some relative or friends or somebody that has money that they're willing to lend to you, I think that's a great way to a great source of funds.
Okay.
The hard money lenders are going to be more expensive. So the rates are going to be considerably higher. Yeah. But access to capital is the problem for a lot of people. And so, however, I would say if you're getting started, you can still use conventional financing for a lot of things, or you can go to a local bank and you can find a construction loan or like a fix and flip loan.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same product where you're still, they'll give you 80% of the purchase price, 80% of the rehab, and then you kick in the rest.
Let's bring it back now to the conversation of when you were finally acquiring those 4 to 5 properties. What do you think took place after that? And was there at any point a barrier that you kind of like broke past, that you said, oh, okay, now I'm only going to do this way?
I would say the first barrier was just when we just got started and we bought the first 2 and we found tenants right away and they paid right away. And we just felt like we proved the concept.
Okay.
And when you're getting started, that's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to take this, big leap. I'm going to buy a house. That's a lot of money, right? I'm going to commit to this and I'm going to hope I find somebody that's going to pay me, right? So just, that's kind of the first barrier that, yes, this does work. I think the second one for us was when we started buying properties that needed rehab, because we were able to build in so much more equity, right? So to begin with, we were buying properties and we were just kind of paying market value or maybe slightly under market value. So there wasn't a lot of equity in those properties. Once we started doing the BRRRR strategy, so we were buying properties that needed a lot of work, then we're building in our own equity in that.
Refinancing and then using that money to fund future projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the plan with the BRRRR strategy is to, you're going to buy the property, you're going to put money in to rehab that property, and then doing it correctly, you should get all that money back out. Mm-hmm. So you do that cash out refinance, that's going to pay all that money back to wherever you got it from, whether it was your own cash or whether it was somebody else's or whether it's the bank's money. And then you're going to refinance that into a long-term mortgage. But at that point, that refinance is going to take place. That bank probably won't give you more than 75% of the value. Well, if your purchase plus your rehab is 75% or under, which is what it should be, mm-hmm. That's how you run those numbers, then you just made 25% equity with that property.
Right.
Right. So imagine you have a house that's worth, after you're all done with it, after the after repair value, the ARV is $200,000. Let's say you bought it for $100,000 and you put $50,000 into it. So you just refinance it for $150,000. You now have that $50,000 is 25%, and you now have $50,000 in equity that you didn't have before.
$50,000 in equity, and also the loan, the money that you're pulling out of that is tax free.
Correct. Yeah, in this case, that money is just money you've already spent, so you're just paying yourself back. But there are times where maybe that same scenario, you only put $30,000 into it, and you still got $150 back. So now you got $20,000 extra, and that's true. That's tax free. I mean, it is money that you just borrowed, and you're going to pay back to the bank. But
technically, yeah.
But that is $20,000 that you can then take and use for the next down payment or for the next, expense that you have on the next property you're buying.
Did your first BRRRR strategy go as planned?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't remember it.
You don't remember? You've done so many.
There's been so many. Most of them don't go exactly as planned. You do as best you can to try to mitigate the risks. And the nice thing about single family is that the numbers are small. So when you're making a mistake with a single family and let's say you don't make money on it, you've probably only lost $5,000 or $10,000, Or on the other hand, when you do make a lot of money, well, you're probably only making $20,000 or $30,000. So it's not, the numbers aren't huge, but they're a lot easier to buy and a lot easier to sell. So it's a good place to start because a lot of people can get into it.
At what point do you start taking blanket loans?
I think it just depends on the situation. And so you might have somebody that doesn't ever do that. Because you can have a mortgage on every property, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. You can get a mortgage or refinance those into one, like a blanket mortgage that maybe it has 10 properties under one. So, sometimes there's reason to do that, sometimes there's not. So, for example, we did that at one point, and it was partially because we had a couple properties that we felt like we couldn't refinance very well, and they were sitting at pretty high rates at the time. And so we packaged those together with, 5 total properties. And so we were able to refinance the 2 that we were concerned about that had variable rates that were climbing. And we, were able to put that into package that together in a mortgage that had a much lower rate.
Okay. So is that beneficial to the bank?
In this case, it was a new bank that we were sending it to, so they were, we had probably four or five different mortgage companies that serviced those 5 properties.
Right.
And so we moved it into one loan at a new bank. And so it's good for that bank because they just, they have a new customer.
Right. That makes sense. Why single family? I know we've talked about this before, but why haven't you made that jump into multifamily, or why didn't you make that jump into multifamily? What do you think do you find so valuable in the single family world?
So a couple answers there. First of all, single family is easy. I understand that. So it's really simple for me to do that, to run those numbers and to find the properties. And so that's good. I have a comfort level with that, so it's easy for me to stay there.
Makes sense.
We did buy a 10-plex. I think it was around 2008. I think it was in 2008. So it was actually, I think it was before the crash. But regardless, we bought this 10-plex, and we bought it on contract. And I was managing it. And while I was still, working full time, and we had a couple of young kids in elementary school, and what I found was I was spending way too much time at that apartment complex, and it just wasn't worth the effort. And so
for the management, right? For everything.
Yeah, for the whole thing. So I don't know if it was just, if it was the neighborhood it was in. I didn't feel like it was a terrible neighborhood, but it wasn't a great neighborhood. It wasn't, it wasn't in the suburbs or anything. But, we had a combination of tenants. It felt like we kind of had a hard time getting good tenants that were good paying tenants and good neighbors. So there's lots of complaints about each other. And it seems like I was there 3 times a week collecting rent and handling different things. And so anyway, so we ended up selling that. We kept it for a couple of years, and that was about enough for me to know that that I didn't want to do that. Now, that's not that I don't want to own multifamily real estate. I just know that I don't want to manage it.
Oh, okay. You don't want to manage it.
I don't want to manage it. So, in hindsight, do I wish I still had it? Well, sure. Because that, 10-plex that, I paid $350,000 for is probably worth, $500 or $600 now. I don't know. I'm sure it's worth a lot more, but anyway, so that was my experience so far. In the future, I do plan to be, I think we'll probably buy some multifamily, but it'll be with somebody else managing it. It might be through a partnership or syndication or something else. I'm not sure yet, but.
Mm-hmm. So let's finish the story. Once you started doing the bird strategy, so from there to now, what happened?
We started doing the bird strategy probably 2005, 2006. We had acquired, I'm not sure if I'm going to have my numbers right, but probably 15 or 18 properties before, maybe 15 before 2008. And then we bought that 10-plex. I was so busy with the 10-plex, I didn't buy many properties for the next couple of years. Once we sold the 10-plex, and I started buying a few more. At that time, the ramifications of the financial crisis was that bank lending got a lot more difficult. And so we started buying more properties on contract. We didn't buy a lot of them, but each year we buy one or two. So we continue to add to the portfolio. And so we bought those on contract, and then I decided to. Well, I had the opportunity to leave my full-time job. My position was being eliminated, and I had the decision whether I was going to go look for another job or not, and decided that I really wanted to do real estate full-time. Yeah. And so that's what I decided to do. The timing just worked out really well with, where our properties were, where the portfolio was, where our family was, everything else. The stars kind of aligned there. So that was 2020 when that happened. So once I went full time that first year, then my original plan was to buy, maybe five or six properties a year and just do a lot of the rehab and just add to the portfolio, focus on cash flow to replace my income, and right off into the sunset, but.
And you end up doing a lot more.
That changed. So we got about 6 or 8 months in to that. I had probably bought 4 or 5 properties of our own, that we had been rehabbing, and for buy and hold, or good rentals. We got great rates on them for interest rates. Reconnected with an old friend, Junior Ibarra, and we just started talking about some of the opportunities that they had at Team IRG. They just happened to have some opportunities that were more of a cash offer program that they had been testing out. Yeah. And they turned that on and quickly realized that there was a need for it, or there was interest in that. Yeah. But they had been focused, and I say they, it's really Ryan and Junior and Ryan is the guys that own that. So they've been so busy, building the real estate team that they didn't really have time to
take care of those properties.
Take care of the properties.
Okay.
Manage the contractors, to buy them, to sell them, to do the analysis and all of that.
So that's where you come in place.
Right. And so, the timing was perfect, because that's when I started. I had a full-time effort. I had, 18 years of experience analyzing properties, single-family properties especially, and that's really what most of these opportunities were.
What do you think you have learned of? I'm just trying to, besides the experience, what do you think you are good at now when you're analyzing a property? Like, what is it, some of those things that you can see quickly that maybe a newer real estate investor can't see?
I think just knowing if the numbers work is something I can look at pretty quickly, just by looking at, what I think it's going to be worth at the end, at the ARV after repair value, and what they're asking now. I can usually determine pretty quickly whether it's even worth it to go look at it. So that's something that's good. I think from experience of being a landlord, if it's a buy and hold, you have to think about things like, if you're going to keep this as a rental, is it going to pass inspections to get your rental certificate, things like that. And so those are a lot of things that I can look at when I'm going into a property. And if I'm kind of looking at this as probably being a rental that we're going to keep, I'm going to pay more attention to, things like, cracks in the driveway, the electric panel, I don't know, different things like that might be more expensive to fix if I had to make it a rental.
Okay.
Right. So there's a lot of experience there that helps with that. And I think I have a pretty decent gauge on what people want when they're buying properties as well. So
you know what to look for in order to make it quick.
Yeah. That whole question, is this a desirable property? Yeah. There's a lot of properties out there that you can buy that have, 3-bedroom houses that have a bedroom that's 6 foot by 8 foot. You can barely put a bed and a dresser in it. Yeah. People don't want that. And so, So when we run into something like that, then we either don't buy it or we figure out how do we make this house better. Maybe we move some walls around. Maybe we reposition the kitchen. Can we add a second bathroom? Things like that. So there's times where we're able to take a 2-bedroom house and make it a 3-bedroom house, or make a 3-bedroom 1-bath into a 3-bedroom 2-bath. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that increases the value, and it also increases the desirability of the house itself.
So do you have any like engineering background or architect?
Nope.
So this is just from experience.
Just from experience.
And just from watching, because you actually don't do any of the work.
I've done some in the past.
You've done some? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm fairly handy.
Yeah.
But I'm not great at everything. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of landlord related stuff I can do, like fix some leaky pipes, or I can put a door on, or I can do, there's a number of things I can do. But I'm not going in myself and, spending 3 months, rehabbing a property.
What do you think, where do you see yourself with everything that you're doing, with the acquiring properties every year, and then with the partnerships that you're doing? What do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What is kind of like a long-term goal and a short-term goal too that you have set up for yourself?
I think our focus right now is really to build a model of what we're doing with the IRG Instant Offer program. And so, and that model includes, how do we acquire properties? How do we get the leads in the door? Find our customers for that. How do we are we able to resell those to other investors, and help other people, build their business, their net worth as well, as well as keeping our own share, also. So right. I think we're building that model of in the systems that's all behind that. My goal really would be to get it systemized enough so that we can bring in some good talent to run it, probably much better than I do. And so at that point, then I'd like to focus on other things like lending. I'd like to focus on, learning more about commercial. I'd like to focus on, moving into other areas of real estate that I haven't learned yet. Those are all very interesting to me. But, for right now, I think we have a good opportunity and we have a good business and we have a good vision for what we want to do. So we're going to work on that and get that fine-tuned.
How do you think people can now add value to you?
We're always looking for deals, so any kind of opportunities that people are selling houses or any kind of real estate for that matter, we're always open to looking and buying. When it comes to lending, that's always something that we're looking for is access to capital. And so, we do have a number of private lenders that we work with, and that's wonderful. I mean, if somebody has money in their IRA that they want to take out of the stock market, and they're, are willing to get a good percentage, return on that, they can definitely contact us and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. What about networking wise? Is there anything specific is there any type of people that you're looking forward to connect to that you like to make relationships with?
Yeah, I think, obviously people that are interested in real estate is great. I mean, we can help them with that, and I'm sure they can help us with different things as well, but we do have a lot of experience with that. So I'm always happy to talk with people, about real estate, answer questions. There's no secrets out there as far as I'm concerned. It's just, who has the connections and who wants to put the work in, And so as far as networking goes, yeah, I mean, they can just reach out. I'm always looking to connect as well for just various opportunities. I think especially as the deals get bigger, if we move out of single family and we move into other asset classes, then I think, partnerships, relationships are even more important there. And so we're always looking for that as well.
What is one thing that you wish you would have learned sooner?
I think learning that cash flow lesson early on would have been something that, again, if I had to do it over, I would go right into the BRRRR strategy from the start. There was a number of those houses that we bought with the BRRRR strategy that we paid off before we paid off the first two houses, and we just owed less, so we ended up, cash flowing more, probably getting a higher value property, and then we got it for less money.
So in the long term, because of the equity that you were putting into the property by adding value, it paid itself faster.
Yeah, and I think on some of them we just owed less on it to begin with as well. So anyway, so that would have been definitely something I wish I would have learned a little quicker.
Talk to me about instant offers. What's that program about?
So the instant offer program is anybody who's looking to sell their home. We'll come and give them what we call an instant offer, which is you could also call it a cash offer. That typically means that we'll buy it as is. They don't have to clean it. They don't have to fix it. They take what they want and leave the rest. So what we're doing really with the program is we're just making it really easy. So if they're interested in the simplicity of just being able to sell their home, they don't have to worry about people walking through it. They don't have to do anything to it. There's no inspections or appraisals, or it's not contingent on any of those things. We just take it as is.
Who do you think benefits from that?
I think anybody who needs the convenience. So, it could be something who's people that are in a tight spot. There's always that. If they have properties that just need a lot of work, probably they may not pass inspections when it comes to a typical real estate sale transaction. We'll take those off their hands. Also people that it's that convenience. We recently, bought a property from somebody who just got a position out of state, and, they were really more interested in focusing on, finding a new location in the new city they're moving to. They had, the family, and there's, just all the details that go into picking up and moving within, a short amount of time to a whole nother area. And so selling their house was something that they just didn't want to deal with. And so we were able to go in, and we gave them an offer. Thankfully in this market, a lot of people have equity in their home. So this is even more common, now. So it just gives them the peace of mind. They still made quite a bit from their home purchase, and they moved on.
What do you think there's not that many programs like this?
Some of it I think is experience. A lot of it's access to capital.
Okay.
I think, there are other, wholesalers will do this, or other, flippers, rehabbers and such, will do some of this, but they typically don't have a program like this necessarily. Wholesalers might, but, so, it takes some work to put everything together, right?
Yeah.
You got to come up with the leads. You got to know how to price them. You got to know how to talk to them. You got to know how to work, through the deal with the homeowners. And so we're putting all those pieces together.
That's amazing. David, is there anything else that you would like to mention? I think we covered pretty much everything, but the BRRRR strategies and just like kind of your story, it's a really good story for somebody who's getting started into real estate, and just like understanding that it's not going to take 2 years. It's taking you how many years?
We've been in it for almost 19 years.
Okay, 19 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep. Now, people can do it in less time for sure, but the thing about buy and hold real estate is that it's hard to go wrong with it, right? So the real estate continues to appreciate, your mortgage continues to be paid down, the rents continue to go up.
Yep.
There's tax benefits on top of that, and so so it really pays you 5 ways, right? So
and the government, in a way, I don't want to get into politics, but I think like the tax code just keeps benefiting like the purchase of real estate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's good incentives for buying real estate. You may not realize it when you buy it specifically, but when it comes to doing your taxes later, because you're able to take the depreciation off the real estate that you own.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot as well.
David, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your time here. If you guys made it this far in the video, subscribe, hit the like button. If you guys have any questions for David or would like to get in touch with him, I'll leave all of his information in the description. I'll see you guys on the next one.